Giordano Nano Oviedo is the boss of a crime syndicate in San Juan. His brother is Aurelio Oviedo, the superintendent of police in Puerto Rico, which would be the equivalent of the head of the FBI in the US. Aurelio has been assassinated, and Nano's rival Antonio has been making moves to eliminate progress made by Nano's men when his brother was in power. This scene is between Nano, two of his henchmen, and Alvaro, who is the right-hand man of Antonio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got that.
That's who's currently hurting.
Nano sat in his living room while he listened to his captains inform him of developments in the street. He had heard the same reports for weeks. The cops were only targeting Nano's people while Antonio was making gains in territories he had held for years. Antonio's gangs were doing drive-bys and ambushing their crews out in the open, but the cops did nothing to stop it. His advisors told him time and again they needed to strike back and make a statement, but all Nano was interested in is what they had been hearing regarding his brother's death. The cops say it was that independentista. And you believe them? Well, that's the word from the top down. Jorge sent me a bottle of rum with the congratulations. Well, you know what? I don't believe it. That skinny asshole didn't have the balls to attack my brother or the organization. Jorge loved your brother. He wouldn't lie about who killed him. Are you on his payroll now? If Jorge cared so much about your brother, why is he letting Antonio's people run wild? San Juan is on lockdown, and yet he's taken 3 blocks from us within the last week. Think he's working for Antonio? I don't know, but it don't feel right. Nano rubbed his eyes until they nearly popped into the back of his head. Nothing added up. Jorge had attended Aurelio's funeral and vowed to bring the killer to justice. And within days, Emilio was dead. Why him? All the people who hated his brother, why would some Campos wannabe assassinate his brother? All his speeches were against the governor and foreign businesses. It would make more sense to kill them, not his brother. But that was the story. If one thing was certain, it was that the Puerto Rico PD was fractured with every cop bought out by one interest or another, and yet they were united in the story. He told his advisors to not let Antonio's people run them over, to arm themselves twice over if necessary, and to instruct all their dealers to shoot first if they saw anybody they suspected worked for Antonio. If it caused an all-out war, so be it. It's already a war, Nano. We need guidance. Just accept that Emilio killed your brother and let it rest. There was a knock at the door. Somebody stopped, everyone stopped, and looked at Nano for guidance. Are you deaf? Answer it! A henchman armed with a machete on his belt and a rifle on his shoulder opened the door and was greeted by Alvaro, who had come unarmed and alone and simply wished to speak to Nano about his brother. When the henchman relayed the message, and for the first time the whole afternoon he appeared to be entirely present and alert, he motioned for Alvaro to enter, and he took a seat in the recliner across from Nano. Just let me say that I am sorry to hear about your brother, Alvaro said. Go to hell. What do you want? It's an unfortunate thing to lose a brother. My boss knows this too well. He lost both of his at a young age, and he wishes me to express his deepest condolences. Then why didn't he say it himself? He worried you might blame him for the murder, which is why I'm here. To not only denounce any suspicion of our involvement, but to, in fact, pass along information from our own sources that might be of some help to you in finding the real killer. If you don't believe the official story, official story is paid for by special interests. It's a half-truth. In this case, what is true is that your brother's dead, and everything else is a lie. Again, why couldn't Antonio tell me this himself? He's left the island on business. How convenient. He left 3 days before the murder. It was pure coincidence. But as you well know, Antonio has connections throughout the Caribbean and Mexico. He has to leave the island periodically to tend to his investments. That's all. What's your business here, Alvaro, aside from making a circus of yourself? I have only the best intentions, I assure you. I'm not going to sit here and act like I had the deepest affection for your brother, but like I said, Antonio knows what it's like to seek vengeance, and we wish to help you because we had nothing to do with this. And I understand why you might feel that we did, but I want to make it clear that while we may be competitors professionally, that we are also part of the same community. In the end, your interests are ours as well. We have to look out for our own. Now, it's come to my attention that a few weeks ago, prior to Aurelio's murder, there were some people asking about Haitians. And only 2 people in San Juan deal specifically with Haitians. One of them buys only young boys for politicians, but the other, he deals with women and men and owns bordellos throughout the city. His name is Feliciano, and our source says that 2 weeks before the murder, some men came to him asking about weapons and where they might be able to find some Haitian men for cheap. Feliciano doesn't deal in arms, but he knows people. And this source says that when he asked why they wanted arms, their response was that they had a big job coming up. Now, another source, a real reliable kid from the Perla, said that after the killing, a friend of his told him that he saw 2 men leaving the scene of the crime, that they were black and didn't speak Spanish. I checked a few other sources, and they said the same thing. Source after source pins your brother's murder on 2 black men who didn't speak Spanish. So it only makes sense that they must have been Haitians. Now, if it's true, Feliciano knows who arranged the killing and also where the killers were purchased from. Now, I'm telling you this because I know that you know that this independentista storyline is complete bullshit. It makes the estadotistas look good and scares people about independence ahead of next year's elections. It's fucking transparent, the whole thing, no? And when I hear this, I knew I needed to come to you so that you knew, man to man, that this had nothing to do with our organization. We want you to find your brother's killer, and this is our peace offering to you. Does that mean you're going to stop ambushing our people and taking our territory? One of the henchmen said, but Nano raised his hand to signal that he back off. Alvaro was sweating and grinning every other second. Nano was quiet. And he made a gesture towards the henchmen who were standing behind the recliner. At once the henchman pulled a wire out of his pocket, wrapped it around his palms, and in one swift motion, wrapped the wire around Alvaro's neck and pulled back, the wire cutting into his throat, causing him to choke and flail his legs. Nano stood up, pulled out a small revolver, which he pressed against Alvaro's cheek. Listen, rat, even though I should kill you, if for no other reason other than your boss is too big of a pussy to come here and give me this message himself, I'm going to show restraint. Because I want nothing more than for you to relay a message to him. And I want to make sure this message is clear and without any misunderstanding. You see, I don't believe for a second that you or Antonio give 2 shits about my brother or my feelings. But there's something to your story that makes more sense than this official story horseshit. And if I find out that you or your boss had anything to do with my brother's death, even if you just happen to have passed by those killers or eaten in the same restaurant or open a door for them, no matter how small a connection I can find. If I do, I will skin you both alive, starting with your balls and working my way up. And what's more, make sure you tell Antonio word for word what I'm about to say, because I want no misunderstanding when I tell you. I am death, and I will collect those who have wronged me. And if you have any doubts, fucking test me, because I will tear your world apart with everyone you have ever loved and ever known. The henchman released the wire, and Alvaro sprang forward, coughing blood, while blood streamed down his neck and soaked his shirt. Now get the fuck out of my office!
Wow.